Breaking news out of Tooele County, where 3 people are confirmed dead in a car crash.
3 adults were killed, 6 were injured. 5 of those people were teenagers between the ages of 13 and 17. 2 people were airlifted to the hospital in critical condition.
Rebecca Ives' son, Sam, would be 19 today, but his young life was ripped from him at the age of 11. Sam was mauled to death by a black bear who had already been reported in the area. Wildlife officials knew about the aggressive bear and should have shut down the campground, or at least put out a warning.
The way that he was taken was the most violent, horrific way you could ever imagine losing a child.
In an instant, the lives of Utahns can be changed forever.
They're supposed to plow the snow, and they hadn't done that. And by not doing that, that created a ski jump ramp effect, which caused my wife's vehicle to, it's supposed to hit the barricade, and it couldn't hit the barricade because it was piled up and obscured with snow. So the snow acted as a ramp, and her vehicle went up and over. Consequently, she didn't return home that night. And so, if the snow hadn't been there, she could have just hit that wall and bounced off, and she may have gone to the hospital for a little while, but likely is she would have returned home to her family.
When state and local government causes catastrophic injury or death under current Utah law, the damages caused in such tragedies will never be fully compensated.
Well, one thing that I learned through this process, which I didn't even know existed in our government, is that the king can do no wrong. And because I guess in old Britain, it was determined that the king was part of divinity. And as such, he couldn't make a mistake. Well, the state of Utah has now claimed that same privilege for themselves. They are the king, and they can't do wrong. And they've insulated themselves in countless different ways to make it nigh impossible for an individual claimant or family or children to try to, correct a mistake that they may have caused. And in my case, they did cause.
But today, many states and the federal government have repealed this kind of sovereign immunity, rejecting the notion that the king can do no wrong. Government entities in Utah employ over 150,000 people, by far the biggest employer in the state. Comparatively, the federal government employs about 35,000 employees in Utah. Yet, the federal government enjoys no cap or ceiling when its employees cause injury. If a private company employed this number of state, local, and federal employees, appropriate insurance coverage and financial responsibility would exist to cover the damages caused by its employees.
The state actually uses this governmental immunity to hide from many, many, many things.
In a recent case, a van owned by the federal government was involved in a crash that was the fault of the van driver. 2 people were killed. Several people suffered severe injury. However, the federal government did not invoke government immunity and were required to make them whole. If this had been a Utah case, the per-accident cap would result in hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, in medical bills, rehabilitation costs, and loss of family income not being paid. The involved parties would be left to pick up the pieces and suffer for extraordinary injuries that they did not cause. In another recent Utah case, a truck driver turned left in front of a family pickup. A passenger suffered severe and permanent brain damage. The child will need lifetime care, exceeding millions of dollars. Fortunately, these costs are expected to be covered. If that driver had been working for the state, the arbitrary cap, which is just over $700,000, would result in lifetime medical bills and custodial costs never being fully compensated. If you are ever injured in an accident that causes permanent injury or disability, you better pray that injury is not caused by Utah state or local government.
I see a lot of things that are set in place to protect the government from lawsuit, but I see very, very little, if anything, to protect the individual citizens. And what's even worse, I see very little change coming from the government.
The financial damages that go with severe injuries are devastating. Someone must pay for the medical costs, lost wages, and provide fair compensation for the changes in lives severe injuries bring. If a citizen of Utah is tragically injured by a Utah government employee, who pays for the losses suffered? During a State Board of Examiners meeting, Attorney General Sean Reyes explained why he doesn't believe in caps on government immunity.
Governor, a few thoughts. One, just for the record, I don't even believe in caps. Having studied tort reform for the last 20 years and every, I think, major tort reform initiative, I'm a little more of a free market kind of guy. Even when you're talking about government ought to be treated in many ways like business in the free market. And if they're liable and you can prove a case, and so philosophically, I don't even necessarily believe in caps.
During that same State Board of Examiners meeting, Governor Gary Herbert explained why government immunity caps are wrong in horrific cases.
If there is a government entity and when people are done wrong by a government bus driver or cop that runs through the stop sign or whatever the issue may be, they've got to have some recourse. I mean, government's got to own up as an entity to make things right. The caps doesn't fit for this horrific accident that had so many other people involved, and so we need to pierce that cap.
Now the legislature needs to correct the current caps on sovereign immunity.
The state should fix whatever it was that they did wrong, and especially when you look at that through the prism of, hey, we're willing to spend millions of dollars to defend ourselves in court, but we're not willing to spend that same $1 million to remedy a situation or remedy the negligence.
Utah government entities should be an example to the people of Utah in being accountable for the actions and mistakes that happen in our lives. Utah is better than this. Please, Utah legislators, it is time to repeal the cap on government immunity.